this is a sampling process in which groups, not individuals, are randomly selected. Okay. So if you can still recall, from simple random sampling to systematic to stratified sampling, okay. So those three sampling techniques, individuals were being selected. Okay. But here in cluster sampling, instead of individuals being selected, we are now selecting groups. Okay. So all members of selected groups must have similar characteristics, or what we call the homogeneous characteristics. Okay. It is a result from a two-stage process in which the population is divided into clusters and subset of the cluster, in which the population is divided into clusters and the subset of the cluster is randomly selected. So clusters are commonly based on geographic areas or districts. Okay, I think I have an example here. Okay, so this is the steps, no, in cluster sampling. So step one, okay, we identify and define the problem. Of course, we need to do that before we do the sampling, no, and then we have to determine the desired sample size, and then we identify and define a logical cluster. So we have to cluster them by any means, and then we list all clusters or obtain a list of all the clusters that comprises the population, and then we estimate the average number of population member per cluster. Okay, and then we determine the number of clusters needed by dividing the sample size by the estimated size of the cluster. Then we randomly select the needed number of clusters using a table of random numbers, and then include in your study all population members in each population cluster. Okay, so lang ha, do I have an example here for cluster? Ayan. Okay, for instance, this is a study, no? And then your tawag dito, your scope, okay, your sampling frame, your population is I mean, this study here is from, let's say, for instance, DepEd, no? Kay, according to this, suppose a superintendent would get a sample of teachers using I mean, cluster sampling. So the population is all 5,000 teachers in the superintendent's school system. Okay. So the desired sample is 500, tas a logical cluster is a school. So for instance, sa Osanad district, okay, may ada 5,000 teachers. And then the superintendent want to select only 500 teacher. Because instead of just picking randomly 500 teachers, no, from that specific district, okay. So ayan nga, because of the geographical uh, problem, no, higrayo ugod ito pag district, di ba? So we have different schools, how many schools it is in a district. So makukurean kita pag sample if randomly total random kita nga makuha in samples. So what we do is we cluster them by school. Okay? So that's what is going on here. So the superintendent is a list of all schools in the district, and there are 100 schools. Now imagine if you won't do cluster sampling in a study like this. So kung magra-random ka mo, it is costly and time consuming, very time consuming, because imagine there are 100 schools and then you're going to select randomly 500 teachers from that 100 schools, diba? So that is why there is a need for cluster sampling here, no, especially kung amoy net problem dakon scope and study iba-iba nga lugar. So instead of randomly selecting samples, you cluster them. So here, since this is a district, okay, so by school and to cluster. And then from school clustering, okay, so there are, according to this, problem, meron daw 100 schools. So, yung cluster natin is equal to 100. Ayan. So, although the school vary in number of teachers kasi hindi pare-parehas lahat ng schools ang number of teachers. So, what we do is ina-average lang. Ina-average nyo yung number of teachers. Nag-approximate kayo ng average number of teachers per school. So, although schools vary in the number of teachers per school, there is an average of 50 teachers per school. Okay? So, there are 50 uh, teachers per school. How many schools do I need to get to 500 samples? Anyone from the class? If there are 50 teachers per school, how many schools do I need to get all the
20, sir.
500 samples? Ah,
20 schools. I mean,
20 schools.
10 and above, sir.
So that is just 50, 500 divided by
50.
50. So what that is?
10.
10. Okay. So we should be selecting 10 schools out of 100 schools, no? Because there's an average of 50 teachers per school. So we should just be selecting 10 schools. Kasi nga, we only need 500, di ba? We only need 500 teachers. That is why yes, Mr. Cabello, want to say something? Okay, so since the superintendent only needs 500 and then there are 50 teachers per school, so yun lang, kailangan lang natin i-divide yung 50 by, yung 500 by the average member per school, at average teacher per school, which is 50. So we would have 10 schools lang out of 100. So you are going to randomly select 10 schools out of 100. And after that, yung masaselect mo na 10 schools would be your sample. Okay? And then lahat ng members ng school na yon would be the sample. Okay? So that is cluster sampling. Now again, instead of um, just the members being selected, the individuals being selected, so groups. Okay? So schools is now the sample. But then, lahat ng teachers na member ng school na yon would be included. Lahat dapat. So that is cluster sampling. Hindi pwede na nag-select na kayo ng 10 and then magra-randomly select pa kayo within that school. Okay, so hindi na yan cluster sampling. Kasi pag cluster sampling, pag makaselect ka ng cluster, automatically lahat ng member ng cluster na yon would be included in the sample. Okay? Do we have any question for cluster sampling? Anyone from the class?
Sa mga screenshot lang.
Okay. So this is the last, I think this is the last sampling technique, no? The multi-stage sampling technique. So this is the multi-stage sampling or multi-stage random sampling. So from the name itself, multi-stage. Okay. Multi-stage meaning maraming sampling methods na ginagamit dito. Okay, like say for instance, may example tayo dito. So the procedure is done like cluster sampling but is done in several stages. Yun nga, multi-stage. So this is usually applied when the research activity includes a wide geographical scope of respondents. Okay, so pag malaki yung scope ng study natin. Okay? So for instance, no, a national study to determine the national status of children aged 7 and below. So the first stage is selecting two regions, no, from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So we'll have six regions in all, diba? Okay, two regions from Luzon, two regions from Visayas, two regions from Mindanao. So out of those six regions, so selecting two provinces from each region. Okay. Then after selecting two provinces from each region, five municipalities or cities from each province would be selected. And after that, fourth stage is selecting 10 barangays from each municipality or city. And then last stage is selecting 100 children from each selected barangay. So that is multi-stage sampling. Okay? But sa multi-stage kasi, I think masyado ng, kasi pag malaki na yung population, no, as much as possible, for us to have a good reflection of that sample to the population, kailangan mas malaki yung population, mas malaki din yung sample. Ganun lang. Kasi, pag maliit yung sample natin, there is a higher tawag dito, error o tinatawag natin na margin of error. Okay. So, posible, mas malaki yung chance na hindi mag-reflect. Okay, kasi nga, pag marami yung hindi ma-include sa sample, so may mga outliers na hindi masasali, so hindi talaga magre-reflect yung sample natin to the population. Kasi, the main goal of sampling, the main goal of studying, di ba? The main goal of conducting a study is that kailangan makapag-generalize ka. Di ba? So, from the sample, magsasampling ka, kailangan mag-reflect yon if you want to generalize. Kasi, what's the point of sampling kung hindi siya magre-reflect? Diba? Kung, kasi, i-correlate mo naman yun, i-correlate mo yung sampling, yung samples mo to your population if they are actually related. Yes, Arpon is raising his hand,
Sir,
pati si
ilang
Cabuelio.
percent? Sir, ilang percent po para ilang percent po of the population po para mag-reflect po that size of ano po?
Okay. So I think we actually have discussed that no last meeting. So, 'di ba, sabi nga doon, uh, how ayun, how many is many ba yun? Or how large is large or how small is small? Meron ata tayo dito eh. Ng sampling. Asa na yun? Raw data. Yun, sampling. Yung sampling kasi, di ba, we have a meron tayong various may various tayo na ginagamit na formula in identifying the number of samples. The most common is yung ano yun? Meron tayo kasi mga formula that I've introduced to you. Ayan, so meron tayo from Frankel and Wallen. Ayan, Slovens, yung tinatawag na Slovens. So ito yung ginagamit natin. Slovens formula. This is the most commonly used. So yung big N is the number of population. And then yung E is yung tinatawag natin na margin of error. Okay. Yung margin of error naman, we use from negative, 0.01 or 1% to Pinakamalaki is 0.05 or 5%. So that is ginagamit natin na it's either tatlo lang yung ginagamit natin actually, no? 1% kung masyadong sensitive, 2% kung hindi masyado, and then 5% kung sa business, sa market, ganun lang. So yung 1% ginagamit natin usually in medicine. Okay? Pag hindi, pag masyadong sensitive or masyadong importante yung study, 1% yung ginagamit natin. But then, if that's just for business or market, so we use 5%. Okay? So ayan, usually kasi magre-reflect na dyan. And then we actually have another, no, another, pero actually that was a table lang yung kay, tawag yan, Kedges and Morgan. So ginagamit nila itong formula na to, but then they already provided the table. Okay? They already provided the table sa number of population and then its corresponding number of samples. Ayan, di ba? So I already have also introduced this to you last meeting. So like say for instance dito, yung number of population nila is 80. Okay? Tapos yung number of population nila is 100, yung number of sample is 80. Di ba? That's 80%. Pinaka-safe yan. Masyadong malaki, no? But then, it's gonna depend naman to your study. Okay? So, ito na lang yung gamitin natin to be uniform. We would be using this slow wins. And then, I'll be the one to give you the margin of error. Okay? Kasi, of course, mag-iiba-iba kung I'll just let you choose from 1% to 5% the margin of error. So, I'll be the one to give you the margin of error. Okay? Using the slow wins formula. Okay, so far, yun yung um, those are the types of probability sampling. So we have simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, and then multi-stage random sampling. Do you have any questions so far about those sampling techniques? So for you, which do you think is the most efficient sampling technique?
Ano sa sir?
Huh? Which is the most efficient? Is it simple random, systematic, stratified, cluster, or multi-stage? Which is most efficient?
Kung accuracy sir, mas mapagi kung siguro an other and multi-stage
Multi-stage?
random sampling
And
para ano,
Like say for instance, an example, di ba? An example kasi, katanan nga region, punom lang nga region ang ginapi. Di ba? So do you think magre-reflect yan mo pa eh?
there sir.
on sir, and then systematic.
Systematic. And systematic, that is parang mag-a-assign in ranking, di ba? And then may nakita nth term, tapos, pwede luwat, oo. Pero actually, it's gonna depend naman on the situation. Kasi, every type of sampling, every sampling technique has its pros and cons. Okay, like say for instance, not effective it simple random sampling, 'di ba? Because randomly selecting talaga 'yan, 'di ba? So lahat ng uh, respondents doon, lahat ng member in the population have an equal chance of being selected. But then napaka costly or and no napaka time consuming. Like say for instance, kung the whole Philippines, 'di ba? And then you're going to use simple random sampling. Imagine getting samples from each and every region. Okay? And then 'di ba, ang dami namang from every region, ang daming cities and municipalities, and from each each cities or municipalities, ang dami ding uh, um, barangays, di ba? So, effective yung simple random but then costly and then time consuming. Okay? So, siguro next time we'll have an activity and then siguro maghahanap ako ng mga study or kayo na lang din mismo and then you're going to identify what was the sampling techniques that was used in the study. What was the and then lahat ng statistics na ginamit doon you're going to identify. Okay? From what are the variables, okay? What are the statistics or parameters that was used. Actually, mostly statistic yun, no? Kasi kaya nga nagsasampling, kaya statistics. Kasi if the whole population is being studied, parameter na. Okay, anyway, those were the uh, sampling techniques, the probability sampling techniques. Okay? So we also have the non-probability sampling techniques. So ayan nga, yung non-probability sampling techniques, not all of the members of the population have an equal chance of being selected. And then, yung purposive, I mean, tag dito, yung non-probability sampling is mostly used in a qualitative research. Okay? When we say qualitative research, yan yung may observation, interview, basta the one that uses qualitative data. Like for instance, you want to know the experiences of students no who were under me during calculus 1. What were your experiences? Diba? You would not incorporate that or I mean you would not have parang a quantitative data, 'di ba? Kasi nga you were after the experiences. So qualitative 'yon. Now, pag qualitative na, dito na pumapasok yung non-probability sampling. Okay, if you want your study, I mean, if you want to have anong tawag dito? What's the term? Nakalimutan ko. Okay, so if you want your study to be as reflective as possible, so you would use, if you want to obtain good results, you would use a non-probability sampling kasi you would be selecting your samples from a criteria based on some criteria. Okay? So mapipili niyo yung mga respondents niyo according to what you want to obtain. Okay? So that is non-probability sampling used in qualitative research. Okay, so we actually have five, I think. Four or five non-probability sampling. Lang ha. Let's try to find that. So after multi-stage, meron na tayo. Yun, methods of non-probability sampling. So the first is, we have the convenience or accidental sampling. Okay. So I think if I open if kasi dati kasi no I already have discussed this and then yung convenience as yung accidental sampling is separated on the researchers convenience looking for your samples. Kung ano lang available, yun lang. Diba? Kasi ayaw nyo ang ma-hassle, gusto nyo convenient lang, so convenience. Tapos when you say accidental sampling naman, that is, yun nga, based on the chances lang of meeting some respondents. Like say for instance, nagsudoy-sudoy ka lahat downtown, but then you have no plans at all, what would you do to obtain your samples? Kung hinalan mo, pag nakita ka lang nga, uy, kuan man inihiya na estudyante, may ni. So, dito mo hiyagin interview. So, that's gonna depend parang ano lang talaga siya, accidentally lang kayo magkikita and then you're going to obtain the sample, the data from the sample. So convenience, that is based on the convenience of the, it's either convenience of the respondent or the researcher. Okay, from the word itself, convenience. And then after that, we have quota sampling. So quota sampling, usually practiced in market researches wherein field interviewers are given quota of the number of samples to be interviewed, and the selection of samples usually stops once the quota is reached. Okay, so I think you already have an idea of this. So pag makakota na, stop na. Okay? So usually, ginagamit to when there is parang less budget for the for the research. Okay? Like say for instance, gumagamit kayo ng mga instruments. Yes, Mr. Ripple?
Sir, yung sa election, sir,
Yes.
what kind of sampling they are using? Ano, yung kadalasan na
Election?
ginagamit? Yes, sir.
What do you mean, election?
Yung sa election survey, during presidential
A
election
survey?
Yes.
Yan, kasi I don't really know, no? Kasi that is just based on, like say for instance, yung kampo ni BBM, syempre magre-research, magsasample yan sila doon sa maraming boboto kay BBM. Diba? Doon yan sila magsasample. Kasi nga, they want to obtain.
Let us say,
Yes?
sir, yung sa SWS, yung sa
What's S?
independent party na survey forms.
Okay. What about it?
Ano yung ginagamit nila kadalasan, sir? Kasi siyempre kung halimbawa yung kampo nila BBM, yun ang magpapaganap ng survey, yung team nila mismo, siyempre magiging
Purposive.
bias yun.
Oo,
So
bias yun.
hindi siya magiging accurate. Pero na-observe ko kasi yung sa past election, yung survey na ginawa ng mga independent na third party survey firms is kung ano yung resulta ng election is parang nag-reflect yung survey results nila doon sa actual
Okay.
na lumabas.
So baka simple random sampling. Okay, kasi they would just randomly be surveying.
Yes.
So like say for instance, ano ba? Kasi kung randomly, or baka if they were on a specific area, wala. Kasi kung dakula liwat, I mean kung diri damoan, according to Miss Baricante, she said here that 1K la daw ang participant ang survey. So pag guti ay la talaga ang participant like this, no? And then you're going you want to compare that to the whole population. Imagine, pera in voters natin in the Philippines, no? Tapos 1K la ang participant. So, dakon duruan bias. No, so that's gonna depend on the area. Kung hain ka. Okay,
But
kung ito yung area,
they were able to determine, sir, let's say for
may na ba, may na binira.
social classes, for every social classes, they were almost
Okay.
able to have accurate surveys.
From where
As
ba
the
ang survey? An era ba respondents is from the whole Philippines, from
Yes.
Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Most likely ma-reflect talaga. No, kasi pag dako ani mo sample, mas higher ang chance nga mag-reflect siya to the whole population. Okay, but if ayun 1K according to Miss Baricante, 1K la at mag-survey kan 1K, biskan pa iton ma-zero di dahi BBM, most likely dire ito magre-reflect ha
Yes.
whole population, di ba? Because there are how many millions population in Philippines, di ba?
Yes.
So it won't reflect. So it's usually simple randomly selecting respondents. But then ang mga nagawas ng survey sa TV, usually mga
Yes.
kwaniton mga purposive sampling itera. Okay, may criteria mula siya teraging gagamit. Siyempre, para maka-obtain here, like say for instance, ang mga Lenny, ang narraton respondents, pipiliun nila ang mga makaleni. Diba kay para mag-reflect na mas daog kay Lenny dito. Ang mga pro bongbong liwat, magpo-purposive here, where an era criteria is mostly pro bongbong para ma-reflect liwat ang era study, ang era survey, daog kay bongbong. So ganun 'yon. That is ganun yung nangyayari, no? That is why it is very parang you should not rely on these surveys, no? Kasi most likely ito itong mga sample is very so good ka reliable. Okay, unless ikaw mismo it first hand nga nakaput ito and you want to be as fair as possible. Kung damot mo time surveyhon mo bugos nga Pilipinas, di ba? And that is not survey na pala. Kung if lahat ng voters, no, you were able to get information from all the voters, then that's now what we call census, hindi yung survey. Kasi all of the population na is included.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
anyway, so much for that. Okay, so quota sampling, yun na nga, meron lang tayong quota na kailangang i-reach and then after that, we're going to stop. And then, we also have what we call the snowball or referral sampling. So sa snowball naman, the respondents are telling you where to ask next. Okay? So your respondents would be giving you parang the next respondent. Like say for instance, usually kasi sa snowball, ginagamit to if sensitive yung mga topics. Like say for instance, you want to know the experiences of people who were drug users, 'di ba? For a specific time period. Now, syempre sensitive topic man ang mga especially 'di ba, nauso adtoan pamatayhan mga nagda-drugs. So waray mamaamin nga nagda-drugs siya. But then, kung makabiling kan at least usa, may kilala hiton na para sa iya nga nagda-drugs, 'di ba? So after you interview, after you obtain information from that someone, ma-ask ka, may ka ba kilala? Amoy ni nga sugadini. He or she will be the one to tell you who will be your next respondents. That is why tinawag siyang snowball kasi just like a snowball at the top of the mountain, kung iparol mo hiya, okay, as it rolls down, magtitikad ako ang snowball. Kasi nga yun, obtaining respondents from respondents. Yun, so that is snowball or referral sampling. Meron pa ba? Okay, and then we also have what we call the purposive or judgmental sampling. So, root word natin dito is purpose. Okay? So, from the purpose of your study, just like what I've said earlier, so yung mga qualitative research that's usually purposive sampling. Kasi you want to obtain specific data. Okay, so for the purpose of that data na gusto mo ma-observe, malat mo magkakamiada kahing criteria. Okay, so from this criteria, masulod na ang purpose han imo study. Okay, like say for instance, you want to get or you want to obtain the study habits of students that are good in mathematics. So, ang magkakamiada kayong criteria, ano mo criteria ni mo dito, dapat ang estudyante should have grades in mathematics that's higher than 1.5. So, ang yung criteria, that's one criteria. So, that is now purposive sampling kasi you want to obtain an data na magre-reflect kayo mo study. Ang study habits han mga students good in mathematics. So, kailangan ang criteria dako ang grade. So, that is purposive sampling. Okay. So, do you have any questions so far for the non-probability sampling? So we have paghiwalayin na lang natin yung ano no, yung accidental and then convenience. And then we also have what we call snowball, what else? Purposive, ano pa yung isa?
Quota.
Quota, yeah. So we also have five na non-probability sampling. So may bias to. No, may bias. And then usually kasi if you are going to use hypothesis testing is the process na of reflecting your samples to the population. Now, if you want to reflect your sample to your population, you should not use non-probability sampling. Okay, usually yung ginagamit nyo if you want to reflect kung kung ang tawag doon, hypothesis testing kayo, you should be using probability sampling. Yung non-probability, sa ano lang yan, so qualitative. I think wala namang hypothesis testing yung ano. Wala naman tayong, yeah. Kasi sa quanti lang yon. Yung quali, yun nga is wala siyang statistical treatment doon. Although there are qualitative, may mga qualitative studies that is turned into quantitative kasi may tinatawag tayo na Likert scale. Okay, wherein yung qualitative data is being transformed into quantitative. Like say for instance, yung yung good, fair, very good and so on, 'di ba? Siniscale natin siya into numbers. 5 for very good, 5 for outstanding, 4 for very good, 3 for good, 2 for fair, tapos 1 for bad, 'di ba? So, tinatawag na natin 'yun na scale. And then nagiging quantitative na yung qualitative. Okay? From the qualitative variable, nire-represent natin siya as number, so nagiging quantitative. But then there are also cases na nagla-Likert scale tayo, but still, because of the use of that variable, no, it's still quantitative. Okay? So, nire-represent lang natin siya as number, but then, because again of the use, qualitative pa din. Okay, sige. So next time, I'll be giving you, or what if, hindi kailangan muna siguro, do I need to introduce ba yung descriptive muna? Descriptive kasi is the kasi after this, we'll have the descriptive statistics, yung central tendency, which is the mean median mode, tapos yung ibang measures of location, and then yung variability, which is the range, variance, standard deviation. Okay? And also the graphical representation and so on. So, I think hindi naman na kailangan yun. So, what if I give you an activity and then I would like you to get information from a specific tawag dito, study and statistics, what area of statistics is being used, what are the variables in that study. Okay, sige, yan, let's have that activity na lang, no? Sige, you're going to identify what are the variables, what was the sampling techniques, what else? Sige. You group yourselves into, according to my list, you are 53. Okay, siguro kahit Kahit 3 groups. I mean, 3 groups, 3 members per group. Pero masyado marami, no? Kahit siguro mga 15. O sige, you create a group of 4. I mean, 4 members, no? 4 members per group. Tapos, this is what you were going to do. Okay? Um, you find a study. Okay? Find a study. Tas identify what are the variables being used there. Okay? What are the sampling techniques? Wait lang ha. And then you're going to present that next meeting. Okay, you're going to present that ha. Wait lang ha. Okay, so preferably, sige, in any field na lang, no? In any field na study. Yung mga short studies lang ha. Kahit below 10 pages lang, so that ma-extract lang natin yung information. So you're going to present the study. Tapos isa-summarize nyo kung ano yung mga variables na ginamit doon, ano yung sampling techniques. Okay, what else? Ano yung scale ng variable? Okay? Post ko na lang siguro sa Google Classroom.
Sir,
Wait lang ha. Yes?
sir, pwede ikaw sir ang mag-assign sa ng grouping, sir, who will be the members in every group.
O yun na
Sir,
ako.
kami na lang, sir. And then, pera ka, sir, sa
Kami,
ka-groups.
sir, kami nala, sir.
4.
Sige, sir, sige.
Oo. You communicate na nila ha.
O, waluhan.
Kuan naman ka mo, nagkuha naman ka mo.
Sa ako, Wolf.
Okay, so this is what you're going to write. Ha? Ang mga irregular, tas ang mga you communicate ha. Naman, accommodate naman yung mga classmates iti badida ang magkiriglala. Okay? So this is what you're going to do. Now, based on the research na makikita niyo, based on the study that you will see from the internet, okay? So ayun, si Paulo Ong is also irregular. So listen ha. Based on the research study that you'll obtain or you get from the internet, of course, you're going to attach your your study kabang lininimuhimula ito You're going to write, sige, you're going to present this in PowerPoint presentation. And then of course, you also have parang a summary of your report. Okay. So, number 1, you're going to present the title, of course. And then the second, you're going to present population and sample. What is the population there, and what will be the sample? What was the sample that was taken? And then you're going to identify the variables that was used in the study, and then identify if qualitative or quantitative. Also identify the level of measurement, kung nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Okay? Tapos you identify also the sampling technique used. Tapos you identify if inferential or descriptive. Or kung mayroon man, ganito na lang. You identify kung which part is descriptive and which part is inferential. Are we clear on that?
Pautulo, sir. Correct. Hindi ka siya.
Sige. So number 1, you're going to put the title of the study. Okay? Number 2, you will identify population and sample that was used there in the study, in the specific study na you ginpili. And then number 3, you're going to identify the variables that was used in the study. And then from that, from the variables, you're going to identify kung qualitative or quantitative yung variable. And then, of course, you're also going to identify the level of measurement, kung nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Diba? I have discussed that last meeting. And also, the sampling method. Okay, the sampling method that was used, and you're going to describe the sample based on the sampling techniques that was used. And then lastly, you're going to identify the descriptive part of the study and the inferential part kung mayroon. Okay? Sige, sige, I think you have 1 week naman to work on that. But then, sige, I'm gonna put the instructions dito sa Google Classroom natin. Okay, deadline is, I mean, you're going to present that naman by Monday, by Tuesday next week. So, you're going to submit your work individually. No, kung grupo kayo, you just submit still, but then with names, the members of the group, ha? Pero isa-isa kayo magsasubmit. Lahat magsasubmit, ha? Okay. Yung group I mean, yung work ninyo would be presented next week. Okay? So, we will have siguro mga 5 to 10 minutes each group. Present lang naman yung type of study. Okay. So, you are going to, di ba, mag-group naman kayo. You're going to submit to me the members of your group. Okay? And I'll be posting there kung sino yung mauuna mag-present. Ha? Maggagawa ako ng classwork sa Google Classroom natin, and then i-comment nyo doon yung members ninyo. And I'll be the one to assign which would present first to last. Okay? Are we clear on that? Yes, Mr. Marino.
Sir, can we use, sir, yung ano, yung mga past research namin? Like, nung senior high, gumawa kasi kami ng research. Pwede ba gamitin
It
yun?
should be published na research,
Published.
ha?
Okay, sir.
Sa internet na lang kayo kumuha. May, sa ano, sa Scholar, Google Scholar, meron naman nata
Yes,
doon.
sir.
Kailangan mga published nga research, ha? Hindi yung sa inyo lang. Okay.
Sir,
Yes, Mr. Paul?
sir, can we have a copy of the slides?
Yes. I'll be posting it this after the class. Or
Thank you, sir.
maybe later kasi I still have a class pa. After this, I have a class pala. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Sige, you work on your task, ha? I'm going to create a classwork. Tapos you post your members there, ha? A group of 4. 4 members per group, ha? Tapos you're going to present your work next meeting. And then, syempre, meron tayo doon ilang ano yun? 5? So, dapat lahat magpe-present, ha? Sige. Okay, so if you don't have questions, may questions pa, by the way? May concerns? Ha? On slides. Laka,
Sir,
sige.
ang tanong calculus bihap sir na slide.
Okay, sige. Sige, I'll be posting the slides sa Google Classroom gihapon, okay? Sige, for those irregular students, you communicate to your classmates, and then classmates and mga regular dida, you accommodate your your classmates. Mga regulars, irregulars para may groups din sila. Okay, sige. May concerns pa? So, okay, if there's none, I'll request everyone to please open their cameras. I'll just take a screenshot and then I'll dismiss you.
Sir, dere na kanan akong cam.
Oh, sige, that's okay. For those who have cameras. Okay, so thank you so much for attending today's Gmeet. I'll see you again next week. Be ready for your presentation. Yun lang. See you again next week. Ciao. Peace.
Bye, sir.
Sir.
Bye,
Thank you.
sir.